Have you ever looked up at the night sky and just wondered? Well, in the Bible, stars are so much more than just burning balls of gas. They are these incredible, powerful symbols, representing everything from divine beings and God's people to a massive cosmic war between light and darkness. So let's dive in and explore what these biblical stars are all about.
And right at the very center of all this symbolism, we find the ultimate star. I mean, you can't get more direct than this. In the book of Revelation, Jesus himself takes on this title. He is the reference point, the one true morning star. He sets the standard for what light, guidance, and authority really look like. And all other stars are basically measured against him.
So, here's our game plan for this explainer. We're going to start with Jesus, the bright morning star. Then, we'll see how that star symbol expands to include God's people and even angels. But then, things take a really dramatic turn as we look at the fallen stars, Satan and his followers. And finally, we'll get into the spiritual war between these two sides, the forces of light and darkness.
All right, first up, Jesus. This title, the Morning Star, isn't just some nice poetic name. No, it's a huge declaration about who he is, his supreme nature, and his absolutely central role in this entire cosmic story.
Okay, now this is where it gets really interesting. It's all in the details. See, the Bible actually calls other powerful beings morning stars. We're talking about angels here. But look at the difference. Jesus isn't just a morning star, he is the bright morning star. That one word, bright, is everything. It tells us that while other beings might reflect light, his glory is on a whole other level. It's his own, it's supreme, and it's completely unmatched.
Let's move on to our next point, and you'll see how this whole star metaphor starts to build. It actually expands from the divine right down to the human level, specifically to God's chosen people, who are meant to reflect that very same divine light.
This whole idea really kicks off with the promise. God tells Abraham to just look up at the sky and promises that his descendants will be as countless as the stars he sees. That amazing covenant then gets passed down to his son Isaac. And then, fast forward a few centuries, and you have Moses telling the entire nation of Israel, hey, look around, the promise came true. They had become as numerous as the stars, a living, breathing testament to God's faithfulness.
And this theme doesn't just stop in the Old Testament. Oh no, it carries right on into the New. We see in books like Daniel and Philippians that the righteous are described as shining like the stars forever. So the big takeaway here is that followers of Jesus are called to be these little beacons, reflecting the light of the one true bright morning star in a world that's often described as being pretty dark.
All right, so we've covered the earthly side of things. Now let's look up to the heavens. Stars are also consistently used to represent those spiritual beings who serve God and watch over the church, yet we're talking about angels.
And you really can't get any clearer than this verse in Revelation. The Apostle John has this vision of Jesus holding 7 stars, and then Jesus himself explains the symbolism. He says the stars are the angels or messengers that are assigned to 7 specific churches. It's a powerful image of divine guidance and protection.
And this just ties everything together so brilliantly. Way back in the ancient book of Job, the angels who were there at creation are poetically called morning stars who sang for joy. So you see this clear hierarchy forming, right? You have many angelic morning stars, but there's only one bright morning star, Jesus, who literally holds them all in his hand.
Okay, but now the story takes a really sharp, really dramatic turn. Because not all the stars in this cosmic story are on the side of good. Some have fallen, and their fall is what introduces darkness and conflict into the whole narrative.
This simple sentence right here marks a huge shift in our story. Up until now, stars have symbolized divinity, God's promises, holiness, all good things. But the Bible uses this exact same imagery to describe the origin of evil and the tragedy of a great rebellion. In Revelation, we read about this great star named Wormwood that falls from the sky. And when it hits, it turns a third of the world's waters bitter, causing death. The name itself, Wormwood, literally means bitterness. And this fallen star is pretty widely understood to be a symbol for Satan, whose rebellion brought this bitter, poisonous influence into creation. And this is where that cosmic conflict really comes into focus. This passage from Isaiah, it's a lament for a fallen king, sure, but it's often seen as a picture of the original fall of Lucifer. And get this, notice the title he used to have, Morning Star. He was once a being of incredible light and glory.
This sets up a direct cosmic rivalry. You have the true bright morning star, Jesus, versus a once glorious morning star who chose to rebel and fell into darkness.
And he didn't fall by himself. Revelation uses this really stark image to show us that the great dragon, that's Satan, swept a third of the stars out of heaven with his tail. It's this vivid, symbolic picture of a massive angelic rebellion, where a huge number of angels chose to follow the fallen morning star and were thrown out right along with him.
So now, the battle lines are drawn. You've got the loyal stars of heaven on one side, and the fallen stars on the other. This rebellion sets the stage for the ultimate conflict, a spiritual war for control of heaven and earth itself.
Revelation gives us a front row seat to this celestial battle, and as you can see laid out here, it's Team Light versus Team Darkness. On one side, you have the Archangel Michael and his angels, the loyal stars. On the other, the dragon and his angels, the fallen stars. And the outcome? It was decisive. The dragon's forces just weren't strong enough. They lost, and they were cast out of heaven for good.
But Satan isn't the only major fallen star we hear about. There's another one described as falling from heaven and being given the key to the abyss, which is basically this bottomless pit for demonic spirits. This star, called the Destroyer, is the king of a whole demonic army, and he's let loose to wage war against God's people on earth. He's another key player in the army of darkness.
So here's the bottom line. Despite all the power and evil of these fallen stars, their fate is already sealed. There's this ancient prophecy from the book of Numbers that foretells of a star that will rise from Jacob. And this is another clear reference to Jesus, the Messiah, who will ultimately crush all these opposing forces. The final victory? It was never in doubt. It belongs to the one true bright morning star. So, when we put it all together, we see a universe just filled with stars, the supreme bright morning star, the countless stars of God's people, the angelic hosts, and of course, the tragic stars that fell into darkness. The Bible presents this whole thing not as just some old story, but as an ongoing spiritual reality. And in the end, it brings this epic, cosmic narrative down to a single personal choice, leaving all of us with one final question to think about.